On June 13, 2025, Israel launched a major attack on Iranian targets, including nuclear sites, military facilities, and homes of top officials. As part of Operation Rising Lion, this attack was Israel's effort to halt Iran's nuclear weapons development amid months of rising tensions. The situation is quickly escalating toward a full-scale war with regional stability hanging in the balance. The hostility between Iran and Israel began in 1979 after Iran's Islamic Revolution, leading to a break in relations. Since then, Iran has consistently backed groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, while Israel has responded with military actions. One major incident was October 7, 2023, when Hamas launched a deadly attack in southern Israel, triggering a brutal Israeli retaliation that killed over 41,600 people. In 2024, Iran launched 300 drones and missiles at Israel in response to an Israeli airstrike that killed a senior IRGC commander. Later that year, on October 1, 2024, Iran fired 200 missiles at Israel after Israeli airstrikes killed Lebanese civilians and Hezbollah members. These strikes have led to increased tensions with both nations on the brink of all-out war. So, who supports Iran in this conflict and who stands with Israel? In today's video, we explore the top 10 countries that have backed Israel against Iran in this escalating conflict. Like, subscribe, and comment below to share your opinions on which side you believe should prevail. Let's dive into the global alliances of the 2025 Iran-Israel war.
Number 10. Greece, a European Union member, has increasingly supported Israel in its confrontation with Iran, particularly due to historical, cultural, and geopolitical reasons. Over the years, Greece has become a key ally of Israel in the Mediterranean and beyond, sharing military and economic ties. Greece has voiced its strong opposition to Iran's nuclear program, seeing it as a direct threat to regional security in the Mediterranean and the broader Middle East in 2025. Greece's stance is clear: it supports Israel's defense efforts against Iran's escalating military actions. Greece's involvement in NATO's regional security framework and its joint defense projects with Israel reflect this alignment. Greece also sees Israel as an important partner in energy security and economic cooperation, particularly in the gas and energy exploration sectors in the Mediterranean. Emotionally, Greece's support for Israel stems from the shared values of democracy and sovereignty. Both nations have faced external threats and regional instability, with Greece's position in the eastern Mediterranean often putting it at odds with regional powers like Turkey and Iran. In 2025, Greece continues to stand by Israel, seeing its military efforts as crucial to the security of the region and global peace. Number 9. Italy. Italy has been one of Israel's strongest supporters in Europe, with deep diplomatic and defense ties between the two nations. Italy's support for Israel in the 2025 war against Iran is largely based on its strategic interests in the Mediterranean and its commitment to global security. Italy views Iran's nuclear ambitions as a major threat to regional stability, particularly given the proximity of Italian shores to the Middle East. Italy has long backed Israeli security in international forums and has supported UN sanctions against Iran for its continued nuclear enrichment in 2025. Italy continues to provide diplomatic support for Israel's military operations and strongly condemns Iran's missile and drone strikes. Italy also plays a critical role in European discussions about countering Iran's nuclear program, advocating for a firm stance against Iran while supporting Israel's right to self-defense. Emotionally, Italy's support for Israel stems from its shared democratic values and its commitment to the Middle East stability. Italy also views Iran's aggressive military actions as a challenge to international law and global peace in 2025. Italy's unwavering stance further strengthens Israel's position in the ongoing conflict as it remains a key player in ensuring Israeli security. Number 8. Germany, as one of Israel's most important allies in Europe, has supported Israel both diplomatically and militarily in its efforts against Iran. Germany's commitment to Israel's security is deeply rooted in the aftermath of the Holocaust, with Germany maintaining a strong moral obligation to ensure the safety of the Jewish state in 2025. Germany's stance has remained unwavering, with Germany continuing to supply military technology and defensive systems to Israel, particularly the Dome and AER systems. Germany also stands firm against Iran's nuclear program, viewing it as a direct threat to global peace and European security. As a member of the European Union, Germany has been one of the strongest advocates for sanctions against Iran, and it supported Israel's right to defend itself against Iranian missile strikes. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz stated in 2024 that Iran's nuclear ambitions are a serious threat not only to Israel, but to Europe as a whole, urging further sanctions and diplomatic isolation of Tehran. Emotionally, Germany's unwavering support for Israel is tied to the country's commitment to human rights and the peaceful resolution of conflicts. Germany's solidarity with Israel is clear as it continues to play an essential role in shaping the European Union's policy on Israel and Iran in the ongoing conflict. Number 7. South Korea. South Korea has historically maintained a strong alliance with the United States and Israel, and in the 2025 war, it has unequivocally backed Israel's defense against Iran's aggression. South Korea's alignment with Israel is largely due to the shared security interests in countering Iran's nuclear threats and military provocations. The Korean peninsula itself remains in a state of military tension due to North Korea's nuclear capabilities, making South Korea particularly attuned to the dangers of nuclear proliferation in East Asia and beyond. In 2024, South Korea was one of the first countries to support sanctions against Iran, particularly in response to Iran's missile tests and nuclear weapon ambition. South Korea has also cooperated with Israel in counterterrorism efforts, particularly in the areas of cybersecurity and military defense systems. South Korea views Iran's actions in the Middle East as threatening global security, which directly impacts its national security in Asia. Emotionally, South Korea supports Israel due to its strong democratic values and commitment to maintaining global peace. South Korea has experienced military threats from its northern neighbor, and it sees Israel's resilience in the face of Iranian aggression as a powerful example of defense and survival against external threats. Number 6. France. France has traditionally supported Israel's right to exist and defend itself, though it has also expressed concerns about some of Israel's military actions. However, in the context of the 2025 war, France sided firmly with Israel against Iran's escalating threats. France's historic ties with Israel are intertwined with the two nations' shared interests in regional stability and the fight against nuclear proliferation. France is deeply concerned about Iran's nuclear ambitions, and in 2025 it has continued to push for stronger sanctions against Iran and backed Israel's actions in halting Iran's progress. France has been an advocate for diplomacy, but it recognizes Israel's right to defend itself against Iranian provocations, particularly after the missile strikes from Iran. Emotionally, France's support for Israel is also tied to its commitment to global security and counterterrorism, given that Iran has supported groups like Hezbollah, which France sees as a significant security threat. The French government has also continued to maintain military and defense ties with Israel, providing technology and intelligence to support Israel's defense capabilities. France has been vocal at the UN and in international forums calling for more international pressure on Iran to abandon its nuclear weapons program. France sees Israel as a vital partner in the fight against Iranian aggression in the Middle East. Number 5. Australia. Australia has been a strong ally of Israel in the face of Iran's nuclear ambitions. As part of its regional security strategy, Australia has consistently aligned itself with Israel in addressing the growing threat posed by Iran's nuclear weapons program. Australia has been a vocal supporter of US-led sanctions on Iran, and its foreign policy aligns with Israel's right to defend itself from Iranian attacks. In 2024, after Iran launched missile strikes on Israeli territory, Australia reaffirmed its commitment to Israel's security, publicly condemning Iran's action. Australia's military presence in the Middle East and its cooperation with Israel and counter-terrorism efforts, including joint defense training, further solidify the two countries' alliance. Emotionally, Australia's support for Israel is deeply tied to its commitment to democracy and human rights. Australia has made it clear that it stands against authoritarian regimes, particularly those that pursue nuclear weapons without regard for global peace. In 2025, Australia remains steadfast in its backing of Israel, seeing its defense against Iran as a defense of Western values and global security. The deep connection between Australia and Israel makes their alliance crucial in the ongoing Middle Eastern tensions. Number 4. India. India has increasingly aligned itself with Israel in recent years, particularly in the 2025 Iran-Israel conflict. India's growing defense cooperation with Israel, coupled with shared concerns over Iran's nuclear program, has strengthened ties between the two nations. India views Israel as a critical partner in defense and counterterrorism efforts. Since 2017, India and Israel have significantly increased their military collaboration, with India purchasing advanced defense systems such as spy drones, air defense systems, and missile defense technology. In the context of the 2025 war, India has strongly condemned Iran's nuclear development and its destabilizing actions in the region. India's diplomatic stance has been to support Israel's right to defend itself, particularly in the face of Iranian missile and drone attacks. Emotionally, India's support for Israel stems from shared concerns about regional security, as both countries face threats from militant organizations and Iran's growing influence in Asia. India also has economic ties with Israel, particularly in the high-tech sector where Israel is a global leader. In 2025, India continues to support Israel through diplomatic channels and military cooperation, seeing Iran as a destabilizing force in the region. This alliance is significant for India as it seeks to balance its relationships in the Middle East, especially with its economic and strategic interests aligned with Israel in countering Iran's regional influence. Number 3. United Kingdom. The United Kingdom has long been a steadfast ally of Israel, dating back to the Balfour Declaration of 1917. In the 2025 conflict, the UK stands firmly with Israel, offering both diplomatic and military support. As a permanent member of the UN Security Council, the UK has used its influence to back Israel in the face of increasing Iranian aggression. The UK's commitment to Israel's defense is driven by shared democratic values and a mutual interest in encountering Iran's destabilizing influence in the Middle East. The UK's emotional and historical connection to Israel stems from the legacy of the Holocaust, with many British citizens seeing Israel as a safe haven for the Jewish people. The UK has provided military aid to Israel and continues to support its right to defend itself against Iranian threat. In 2024, Britain joined the US in imposing economic sanctions on Iran and increasing its naval presence in the Gulf to deter Iranian aggression. In 2025, the UK has been vocal in its support for Israel's right to self-defense, particularly after Iran's missile strikes and the threat posed by Tehran's nuclear program. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak emphasized that Iran's actions threaten global security and the UK will continue to stand by Israel to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. Number 2. Canada. Canada has been one of Israel's most consistent supporters in international forums, particularly when it comes to denouncing Iran's nuclear activities as a country that prides itself on human rights and global peace. Canada has strongly aligned itself with Israel in its efforts to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons. Canada's political stance against Iran has been clear, with the government consistently advocating for tough sanctions on Iran and backing Israel's right to defend itself against Iranian provocations in 2025. Canada remains firmly in Israel's camp, especially after Iran's missile attacks on Israeli territory. Canada has provided diplomatic support for Israel, speaking out at the UN and other international forums against Iran's aggressive actions. Canada's emotional connection to Israel is rooted in its commitment to democratic values, human rights, and the protection of sovereign nations. Canada's military and defense ties with Israel have also been strengthened over the years, with the Canadian Armed Forces participating in joint military exercises with Israel. Canada's condemnation of Iran is further driven by its fear of nuclear proliferation and the potential impact that a nuclear-armed Iran would have on global security. The Canadian government has also been vocal in supporting Israeli actions in Gaza, framing Israel's defense as essential to maintaining regional peace. 1. United States. The United States has long been Israel's closest ally, offering unwavering support. Since the 1948 establishment of Israel, the U.S. has always viewed Israel as a strategic partner in the Middle East, particularly due to shared democratic values and the security interests of the West. In the 2025 conflict, the U.S. has strongly backed Israel's decision to launch military strikes against Iran, seeing Iran's nuclear ambitions as a direct threat to regional and global stability. In 2024, the U.S. was instrumental in arming Israel with advanced missile defense systems, including the Iron Dome and David Sling, to counter Iran's missile and drone threats. The U.S. has also provided $3 billion in military aid to Israel annually, further strengthening their defense capabilities. Emotionally, the U.S. government sees Israel as a beacon of democracy in a region plagued by authoritarian regimes. American public opinion largely supports Israel, driven by historical ties and religious solidarity with the Jewish state. The U.S. continues to lead sanctions efforts against Iran and actively participates in NATO-led operations to isolate Iran diplomatically in 2025. The U.S. has also vetoed multiple UN resolutions critical of Israel's military actions, emphasizing its commitment to ensuring Israel's security and sovereignty in the face of an increasingly aggressive Iranian regime. These nations, motivated by shared values, strategic alliances, and regional stability, have fully backed Israel against Iran in the 2025 conflict. The global stakes are high as tensions continue to escalate. Like, comment, and subscribe for more updates on this ongoing Middle Eastern crisis. See you next.